It was the kind of night meant to impress. Seattle's skyline glittered outside the windows of the high-rise hotel where my company held its annual corporate event. It was formal, high-budget, black tie, the type of event where you shake hands so much your knuckles go sore and you rehearse your speech in the mirror half a dozen times before stepping into the spotlight. I'd been working on the presentation for weeks. It wasn't just another PowerPoint deck, it was my career on the line. I was set to pitch a major expansion strategy to the executive board, and if things went well, it was practically a lock for a promotion. Kate knew that. She'd helped me prep it more than once, sitting across the kitchen table with a glass of wine and her reading glasses, offering quiet suggestions while I fumbled through transitions. She had this calm way of pointing out what was missing without making me feel like I was failing. I relied on that more than I ever admitted to her. So it made sense that she'd be there that night. She always came to these events, not just as my wife but as my partner, someone who had weathered the long hours, the late-night calls, the anxiety. We'd been married 6 years by then. Not perfect, but steady. Or at least, that's what I believed. The speech itself went well. Polite applause. A few approving nods from the higher-ups. My hands didn't shake at the podium like I'd feared. When I stepped down, I scanned the room instinctively for Kate. I saw her near the far side of the ballroom, standing next to the bar, talking to someone. It was Rick. I didn't know much about him. He'd been hired just a few months earlier, transferred in from our Chicago office. People liked him. He had that overly confident charm that some guys pull off easily, always slightly disheveled in a curated way, always telling stories loud enough to be overheard. The kind of guy who never missed a happy hour and somehow already knew everyone's nickname. They were standing close. Not inappropriate exactly, but closer than most people get at a work function. Kate was laughing, really laughing, the kind that scrunches her nose and makes her eyes sparkle. I hadn't seen that laugh in a while. Maybe she was just letting loose after the stress. Maybe I was being paranoid. But something in the way she tilted her head, the way she touched his arm when she said something, just stuck. I made my way over eventually. Rick greeted me with that broad, salesman smile. Kate gave me a warm hug, still grinning. If anything, they both seemed perfectly normal, maybe even too normal, like they were playing a part in a scene I hadn't been told I was part of. Great speech, man, Rick said, clinking his glass against mine. Seriously, people were impressed. Thanks, I replied, keeping my smile polite. I turned to Kate. You good? Of course, she said, wrapping an arm around my waist. Proud of you. I nodded, trying to shake the weird feeling that had crept in. We made small talk for a few minutes, then split up again, people to mingle with, drinks to fetch, coworkers to appease. It was a long night. Much later, as things began to wind down and people started heading toward elevators or stumbling into Ubers, Kate and I stopped for a photo together near the big company logo backdrop. Some HR assistant was taking photos for social media and insisted we pose. We stood together, smiling, her head resting on my shoulder. The flash went off. And that's when I noticed it. On the left side of her neck, just beneath her ear, a faint red smudge. Subtle but there. Definitely lipstick. And not hers. Kate's always worn muted tones, dusty pinks, neutral browns. This was different. Bolder. A sharp, cherry red imprint like someone had leaned in too close and left their mark. I stared at it, trying to think of a casual way to bring it up without sounding accusatory. Hey, I said, leaning in. You've got something on your neck. She reached up slowly, brushing her fingertips against the spot, then turned to look at me, utterly unbothered. Her mouth curved into a half-smile, almost teasing. Oh, she said, laughing lightly, that must have been Lisa. Lisa? From accounting. She gave me one of those full-body hugs earlier, right after she'd touched up her lipstick. You know how she is always leaving her mark. She chuckled again. I told her to stop wearing fire engine red to company events, but she won't listen. The way she said it, breezy, dismissive, even a little amused, made it hard to argue. She turned to the HR assistant and asked if we could take another photo. The moment moved on. Everyone laughed. I forced a chuckle, nodded like it made sense. But inside, something shifted. I didn't believe her. I couldn't put my finger on exactly why, but it didn't feel like the truth. The explanation came too easily. Too rehearsed. Like she'd practiced it in her head before I even asked. For the rest of the night, I kept turning it over in my mind. Could it have been Lisa? Sure. Lisa was loud, affectionate, and definitely the type to wear bold makeup. But I didn't remember seeing them interact that evening. And if that had happened early on, why hadn't Kate wiped it off by now? Why had no one else mentioned it? And more importantly, why did I suddenly feel like I was watching my own life from the outside? Back in our hotel room, Kate slipped off her dress and headed to the bathroom to wash her face. I watched her through the cracked door as she rubbed at her skin with a makeup wipe, humming to herself like nothing was off. She was still that same woman, graceful, warm, beautiful, and yet something about her reflection felt distant. Like I was staring at a photo of someone I used to know, taken before things went blurry. I didn't say anything else that night. Neither did she. But something had cracked. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no tears. Just a quiet fracture. The kind you almost don't notice until you feel the cold air seeping through. I laid awake in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept soundly. My thoughts wouldn't stop spinning. What if I was overreacting? What if it really was just an accident? What if all of this, the weird laugh with Rick, the smudge, the practiced excuse, was nothing? But what if it wasn't? That's the worst part about suspicion. It doesn't slam into your life with a bang. It creeps in like a draft through a window you didn't know was open. It seeps into the corners of everything, your memories, your assumptions, your trust. And once it's in, it doesn't leave. It just waits. And that night, lying there next to the woman I'd shared 6 years of my life with, I couldn't shake the feeling that something, maybe everything, had quietly started to change. After the corporate event in Seattle, things didn't explode. They just bent. Quietly. Like a piece of metal under stress, no loud crack, just a slow, subtle warping. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia. I told myself I was tired. Overworked. Maybe even a little jealous. But the lipstick stain, Rick, that unnaturally smooth excuse, they stuck with me. And once that seed of doubt was planted, everything I'd once brushed off started looking different under the light. Kate had always been social, but now her calendar filled up like it was her full-time job. Dinner with an old college friend, book club meeting, spa weekend with the girls, all valid on their own. But they came too often, too suddenly. These friends? I didn't recognize most of their names. She'd say things like, "Oh, I told you about her," or "We went to that brunch once, remember?" But I never did. I started noticing other things too. Small shifts that didn't feel so small anymore. Like how she used to leave her phone on the charger overnight, always in the bedroom, right by the nightstand. Now it came with her everywhere, to the bathroom, the kitchen, even when she just stepped outside to water the plants. Once she even took it into the laundry room. I remember hearing the familiar buzz through the dryer door and watching her rush to open it, eyes darting like a kid caught sneaking a candy bar before dinner. When I asked her about it, she rolled her eyes. Seriously? I'm just checking emails while stuff dries. Is that illegal now? It was always like that. A smirk, a sarcastic jab, a playful insult. She could disarm suspicion so fast it made me question myself. And I let her. Because for a long time I didn't want to be that husband, the overbearing, jealous type who snoops and accuses without cause. That wasn't me. Or at least, it hadn't been. But one Saturday morning changed something. She told me she was flying out to Denver for a wellness retreat with some girlfriends from grad school. No big deal. I even helped her pack. Drove her to the airport. Kissed her goodbye like a fool who still believed. That night, I noticed her fitness tracker on the kitchen counter. She always synced it with her home Wi-Fi so I could see the stats on my phone through the shared app. Out of curiosity and maybe a little insecurity, I opened it. There it was. 18,243 steps. Location? Seattle. Seattle. My stomach sank. I refreshed the page 3 times just to be sure. There was no mistake. She hadn't flown to Denver. She'd spent the whole day walking around the city, our city, while texting me things like, "Flight was bumpy but we landed safe," and "Heading into meditation, love you." I stared at the phone like it had slapped me. When she called that evening, I didn't bring it up. I couldn't. My voice would have cracked. I played along. Asked about the retreat. She gave me all the right answers, even sprinkled in a few made-up details. "There's this hiking trail just outside Boulder," she said. "You'd love it. We might do a sunrise thing tomorrow." All I said was, "Sounds great. Send pics." She didn't. After that, I stopped looking for reassurance. I started looking for patterns. Her mood was different when she came back, relaxed, upbeat, like someone who'd just gotten away with something. She kissed me on the cheek when I picked her up from the airport and told me the trip was exactly what she needed. I smiled. "Glad you had fun." Inside, I was unraveling. Things got weirder after that. She started using cash more, less traceable. I'd check our credit card statements and find gaps where I knew there should have been something. No Uber receipts. No coffee shop runs. Just blank space. She also stopped leaving clothes out. Used to be, she'd kick off her heels by the couch, leave sweaters slung over dining chairs, throw laundry in the hamper without even turning it right side out. Yeah? Her stuff disappeared immediately after use. Like she didn't want me to see or smell where she'd been. One night, I caught her doing a full load of laundry at 11:30 p.m. She said she spilled wine on her blouse. I picked it up, no stain. She grabbed it from my hand fast, muttering something about just being thorough. Then she stayed in the laundry room until every article of clothing was folded and packed away. Even her scent changed. She started wearing a new perfume, something floral and faintly spicy, not the soft vanilla she'd used for years. When I asked about it, she said, "Oh, it was a sample from the spa in Denver." Right? I didn't accuse her. I didn't even ask directly. I just watched, measured, waited. The final straw came a few weeks later. I was home working late when I heard her phone buzz in the next room. She'd left it in the living room, face down. Rare. I wasn't trying to snoop, but when I picked it up, the screen was still lit enough to show a preview of a message from someone saved as Rachel G. But the message read, "Can't wait to see you again. Same place tomorrow," and a winking emoji. Rachel G? No last name? No context? I scrolled back and saw another message from the week before, still thinking about that night. "You smelled amazing." My hands went cold. I didn't open the messages. Didn't unlock the phone. I just stood there, staring at it like it was a grenade, trying to decide if I should pull the pin. That night I said nothing. I kissed her goodnight like everything was fine. But I slept with my back to her and didn't dream at all. I started making a quiet plan the next morning. Not revenge, not yet, but clarity. I needed to know the truth. Even if I already did. I created a new email address. Pseudonym. Clean. I started tracking public profiles, LinkedIn posts, digital breadcrumbs. I noticed Rick had posted a photo from a rooftop restaurant the same weekend Kate claimed to be in Denver. In the background, a woman in a white sweater back to the camera. But I recognized it. I bought her that sweater 2 Christmases ago. A little silver thread along the collar. Unmistakable. That's when it hit me. I wasn't chasing ghosts. I was living with one. She was still there, cooking dinner, laughing at shows, texting me reminders to pick up almond milk, but her eyes had changed. Her phone was now more important than our conversations. Her silence carried more weight than her words. The hardest part wasn't that she was lying. It was that she'd gotten good at it. And I had gotten worse at pretending not to notice. The thing about living with suspicion is that it eats you slowly. It doesn't strike like lightning. It's more like water damage, creeping, invisible at first, until one day the ceiling caves in and you're left staring at the mess, wondering how long it had really been there. For me, the ceiling finally gave way on a Tuesday. I wasn't supposed to be home. My flight from San Diego had been canceled last minute due to a storm system rolling in from the Pacific. I'd been down there for a quick overnight meeting, and since it ended early, I figured I'd hop the first flight home, surprise Kate with takeout and maybe a movie. Some small gesture of normalcy. Part of me, stupidly, was still clinging to the idea that all of this, the lies, the lipstick, the Rachel G. texts, had a logical explanation. That maybe somehow I was wrong. I didn't tell her I was coming back early. I don't know why. Or maybe I do. Deep down, I think I was looking for something. Not proof, exactly. Just honesty, unfiltered. I pulled into the driveway just after 7 p.m. Her car was there, which made sense. She'd told me she had a quiet night in planned, maybe a bath and some reading. I grabbed the bag of Thai food I'd picked up on the way and headed toward the door. That's when I heard it. Laughter. Muffled but clear. A man's voice. My heart stopped. I stood there on the porch for a full minute, frozen. Part of me wanted to walk away, to pretend I hadn't heard anything, to keep the illusion intact just a little longer. But the rest of me, the part that had been slowly bleeding since that night in Seattle, it had had enough. I unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside. The smell hit me first, incense, something woodsy, smoky, not at all like the vanilla candles Kate used to light. I followed the sound of voices down the hallway toward the kitchen. And there he was. Rick. Sitting at our kitchen island, barefoot, sipping coffee from my world's best husband mug like he lived there. His blazer was slung over the back of the chair. His sleeves were rolled up. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. Kate came out of the bathroom at that exact moment, wearing the flannel pajama set I'd bought her on a ski trip 3 winters ago. Her hair was damp. No makeup. Comfortable. Domestic. As if this was normal, as if this was theirs. For a second, no one said anything. Rick saw me first. He froze mid-sip, lowering the mug slowly. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Kate's eyes met mine. She didn't flinch. Didn't gasp. She just blinked once, then set her towel down on the counter. "Mark," she said evenly, "you're back early." That was it. Not, "What are you doing here?" Not, "Oh my God." Just a calm statement. Like I'd walked in on her watering plants. I said, staring at Rick, "but it looks like I should have stayed another day." Kate didn't move. Rick stood up slowly as if any sudden motion might make me lunge. This isn't what it looks like, he tried and immediately regretted it. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. The phrase was so overused it felt like a parody. Then explain it, I said, folding my arms. Explain why the guy who's been texting my wife under fake names is drinking from my mug in my kitchen while she walks around in my pajamas. Kate exhaled through her nose, not in defeat, but annoyance. As if my presence was inconvenient. You weren't supposed to be home, she said, finally walking toward me. I needed space. Is that what this is? I asked. Space? She looked at Rick, then back at me. I think it's time we stop pretending, Mark. And there it was. The real statement. The one she'd been building toward all along. I glanced back at the front door, half expecting to wake up and realize this was just some nightmare stitched together from all my insecurities. But it was real. Too real. I should have yelled. Should have told Rick to get the hell out. Thrown something. Demanded answers. But I didn't. I just stood there. Because when betrayal stops being hypothetical, when it's no longer text messages or lipstick or weird schedules, when it's flesh and blood people in your house, drinking your coffee, your emotions don't surge. They go quiet. Numb. I turned and walked back to the door. Kate didn't stop me. Neither did Rick. I closed it behind me without a word. The takeout bag was still in my hand when I got into the car. I stared at it for a second, then tossed it onto the passenger seat and drove away, not really knowing where I was going. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my chest felt hollow. I parked in a grocery store lot 10 minutes from home and just sat there. Watching people push carts, talking on phones, going about their lives. I wanted to scream at them, tell them what just happened. But I didn't. I just sat in silence, the engine still running, headlights off. Eventually, I called a hotel. Booked a room for the night. I didn't go home again that week. If there's one thing I learned in the weeks that followed, it's that the collapse of a marriage isn't always loud. Sometimes it unfolds through polite texts and quiet logistics. Other times through thinly veiled manipulation dressed up as compromise. Kate didn't contact me for 3 days after I left. No call, no apology, no explanation. Then on the 4th morning, I got a text. We should probably talk soon. Let me know when you're ready to be civil. Civil, that was the word she chose. Not sorry, not I made a mistake, not even can we talk. Just a flat, corporate-sounding message like we were coworkers setting up a debrief after a failed pitch. It felt like she had already moved past it. Or maybe she was never really there to begin with. I ignored it for a day. Then I responded. I'll have my lawyer reach out. I think that's best. Her reply came within seconds. Oh. Wow. So we're going straight to that? Thought we could be adults about this. Adults. The irony hit hard. She'd invited another man into our home, into our bed, for all I knew, and now I was being scolded for taking action. But I stayed calm. I always had. That was my mistake, maybe mistaking silence for strength. So this time I didn't let her tone rattle me. I forwarded her message to the attorney I'd already contacted the night I left. He'd come highly recommended. Efficient, discreet, brutal when necessary. We set up a meeting the next morning. Kate apparently got the message. Because later that week, she called me directly for the first time since everything fell apart. She started out soft. Friendly, even. Mark, she said, I think we can get through this without turning it into a war. I don't want to fight. Neither did I. But then she added, I was thinking maybe I keep the Palm Springs place. And we can talk about some kind of split on your business shares. Just enough to get started, you know? I nearly dropped the phone. The Palm Springs house had been my late father's before he passed. I inherited it. I paid for the taxes, the renovation, everything. Kate liked to vacation there, sure, but she didn't contribute a dime to it. As for the business, she'd never been involved. Not once. I started it before we even met. You're joking, right? I asked calmly. She paused, then said no. I think it's fair. That word again. Fair. It was incredible, the speed at which she'd shifted from indifferent to entitled. She didn't want to talk about what she'd done. She wanted to talk about what she'd get. When I didn't respond, she moved into the next phase, victim mode. I'm starting over, Mark, she said, her voice suddenly softer. You don't know how hard this is for me. I never expected to be in this position. Position? She acted like she'd woken up in someone else's life, not the one she'd engineered piece by piece. You made that choice, I said. Now you live with it. She went quiet. I ended the call. That same night, I got a series of emails, long, meandering essays about how she'd felt lost, how I wasn't emotionally available, how Rick just understood her. Every paragraph was wrapped in self-justification, dressed up as therapy speak. She even used phrases like trauma response and emotional neglect, things we'd never discussed once in 6 years of marriage. It was like she'd Googled how to rationalize infidelity and hit copy-paste. My attorney saw through it immediately. "She's laying groundwork," he said, "trying to shape a narrative where she's the victim. Don't respond to anything unless it's through us." And so I didn't. I went quiet. I moved out of the house completely and stayed with a friend while we drafted the paperwork. Then came her counterattack. She refused to move out. Said the house felt like home. The same house where I caught her with another man. She wanted to keep it along with selected furnishings, meaning anything expensive or sentimental. She also sent her own lawyer's proposal. It included an absurd list of demands: alimony, half my business equity, one of my cars, even my grandfather's old record player, which she'd once said was too ugly to keep in the living room. I don't know what shocked me more, her greed or how clinical it all felt. Like a game of chess where she assumed I'd fold out of guilt or fear. But I wasn't playing defense anymore. My lawyer met each request with cold, precise rejection. "No chance on the business," he told her lawyer. "Inherited properties are non-marital. You're entitled to the car she drove, not both. And unless she can prove hardship, alimony is off the table." The best part? She tried to claim emotional distress. She said I had abandoned her. We submitted a copy of the fitness tracker data, and the text threads, and a timeline of the affair. It didn't just neutralize her argument, it buried it. That's when the tone changed again. She started calling late at night, leaving voicemails. Crying. Rambling about how none of this was supposed to happen like this, how she thought we'd find our way back. She even said once, "I think I made a mistake." But by then her words meant nothing. Every time she played the victim, it only reminded me of how calculated she'd been from the beginning. The smirk at that Seattle event. The silence afterward. The confidence that I wouldn't act. That I'd fold, keep things civil, maybe even let her keep the house where I found her with Rick. I had no interest in revenge. But I wasn't going to be a doormat. I responded with boundaries. With legal filings. With distance. And when she realized she wasn't getting what she wanted, not emotionally or financially, she showed me her last card. She started telling mutual friends that I'd blindsided her, that I was cold, that I'd walked out without giving her a chance to explain. Some believed her. Some didn't. I didn't bother correcting anyone. Because the people who mattered, the ones who truly knew me, had already reached out quietly. A simple message here, a handshake there. Heard what happened. If you need anything, I'm around. In the end, Kate settled. She got what was legally fair, not a cent more. The house went up for sale. My lawyer drew up a strict no-contact clause. The ink dried and it was done. No apology. No reckoning. Just a woman who thought she could betray her way into a better deal and realized too late that some things can't be negotiated. By the time the divorce was finalized, I thought I was done with her. Kate had gotten what the law said she was entitled to and not a dollar more. I figured she'd move on like she always had, with that self-assured stride and a story crafted to make herself the misunderstood one. I wasn't expecting closure. I didn't need it. I just wanted silence. For a little while, I got it. The house sold. I boxed up the pieces of my old life and moved into a condo across town. Clean lines, bare walls, furniture I picked out without compromise. My name on every utility bill. I even bought a new coffee mug, nothing fancy, just a plain blue ceramic one, and threw the old World's Best Husband one in the trash. It felt stupid to keep anything that once tried to make a joke of something that never really existed. For a brief stretch of weeks, I had peace. But then came the corporate event. The same one where everything had started full circle. It had been a year since the last one, and despite everything, I decided to attend. I almost didn't. Part of me didn't want to be in that room again, didn't want to stand on that same stage and look out over those same faces, wondering who had known what and when. But I told myself it was about reclaiming something. Closure, maybe? Or just proof that I could walk into that space again and own it, this time on my own terms. I showed up early. Pressed shirt. New blazer. Clear speech notes. For the first 20 minutes, everything felt okay. I kept conversations brief, smiled when appropriate, sipped water instead of wine. A few colleagues gave me nods of quiet respect, subtle gestures that said, "We remember what happened. Glad you're still standing." Then I heard her laugh. It was unmistakable. High and controlled, like she'd practiced sounding effortless. I turned and there she was. Kate. Leaning against the bar, talking to two people from HR, glass of wine in hand. She looked almost exactly as she had the year before. Same posture. Same confident air. Only this time she wasn't with Rick. He wasn't there at all. She caught my eye for half a second, then turned back to her conversation like I was no more significant than a distant coworker from another branch. No acknowledgement. No surprise. Nothing. Fine. I didn't need anything from her. I focused on my presentation. Nailed it. Clear, steady, even a few laughs from the crowd. I felt good when I stepped down. Lighter than I had in months. And then she did it. As I walked toward the back of the room, Kate spoke just loud enough for people nearby to hear. Still wearing the wedding ring like a sad puppy, she said, mock sympathy dripping from every syllable. A few people chuckled, not full laughs, but the kind that twist the knife deeper. Polite, awkward, unsure. I saw one guy elbow the person next to him. I recognized that guy. He'd offered to help me move last fall and never showed. I looked down. I wasn't wearing my ring. Hadn't worn it in nearly 6 months. Kate just smirked. Took another sip of wine. Didn't even look at me. She wasn't trying to make a scene. She was just reminding me she still could. I didn't say a word. Didn't give her the satisfaction. But it stung. I went outside and stood near the valet area for a while, just breathing. The air was cool, crisp, the kind of cold that doesn't bite but wakes you up. A few coworkers walked by and offered casual goodbyes. One of them, a guy from IT I barely knew, clapped me on the back and said, "Handled that well, man." He didn't have to say what he meant. I already knew. Later that night, I got the text. From Kate. "Hey. Sorry if that came out wrong tonight. I wasn't trying to be mean. You misunderstood everything. It wasn't like that." I stared at it for a while. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, brain drafting 100 different responses. Some angry. Some sarcastic. Some just sad. But in the end, I didn't type anything. I deleted it. Not just the message, the entire thread. Every word we'd ever exchanged. Birthdays. Grocery lists. Random "I love you's" from a life that no longer existed. I stared at the empty screen and felt something unexpected. Relief. She hadn't changed. She still needed to be seen. Still needed to control the narrative. And even now, after all of it, she still believed she could twist it just enough to rewrite the ending. But I was done reading her version. For the first time, I didn't need to answer. I didn't owe her a thing. Not forgiveness. Not attention. Not even anger. Nothing. About 3 months after the final hearing, my friend Greg convinced me to visit him in Charlotte. I almost said no. The idea of small talk, travel, or pretending to be okay exhausted me. But something in his voice, calm, non-pushy, nudged me forward. We didn't do anything extravagant. Walked trails, grabbed coffee, watched a game on mute while talking about everything but what had happened. I think that's why it worked. Then I met Tessa. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. Wore old sneakers, laughed without filtering herself. She was Greg's neighbor, recently divorced too. We weren't trying to be anything to each other. No pressure. No expectations. We walked around the lake one afternoon and ended up talking for hours, not about heartbreak or betrayal, but about dumb movies, strange hobbies, and the weird comfort of silence. There was a lightness in her. Not fake optimism, just honesty. And I realized how long it had been since I could just breathe around someone. No code switching. No masks. We stayed in touch. Texted. Called. Visited a few times. We weren't falling in love, not yet, maybe not ever. But we were healing. Together, in a quiet, respectful way. And one morning, sitting on a bench, sipping bad coffee, she said, "You don't seem broken. Just reorganized." That stuck with me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't proving anything. I was just being. The message came on a Sunday morning. "Hey man. It's Rick. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but can we meet?" My first instinct was delete. But then I thought, maybe closure isn't something you find, maybe it's something you earn. So I met him. He looked tired. Nervous. Less like the confident manager I remembered, more like a guy who'd seen the mirror too many times. He got straight to it. "Kate used me," he said. "From the start. She told me you were distant, emotionally unavailable. That it was already ending. I was dumb. But I think she wanted you to catch us. So she could leave without looking like the bad guy." I didn't say anything. She was already seeing someone else. A guy named Brent. While I thought I was part of some romantic escape plan, she was playing both of us. I believed him. Not out of trust, but because it sounded exactly like her, always building an exit before setting fire to the bridge. He apologized. Said he'd carry the guilt forever. I thanked him for the honesty. But forgiveness? I didn't offer it. I stood, looked him in the eye, and said, "That chapter's over." Then I walked out. Not angry. Not hollow. Just free. The past couldn't touch me anymore. And for once I didn't look back.